I think I found a good way to get Drax. Like most of the Soulframe community right now, I am eagerly awaiting the Preludes 10 update. Even with the moat rework bumped back, there's a ton to be excited about. I'm really not good at waiting, and I needed to find some way to pass the time, so I decided to recruit a few friends and test out some Pact interactions. Let's start this off with a bang. Maverick from my Discord told me about a neat trick you can do with Ode Tempest and Siren. If you gather a bunch of enemies in an astrosphere, and then deploy Siren's decoy inside the sphere, the damage from the decoy's explosion is quite impressive. Astrosphere causes enemies within its range to take more damage, about 4 times more. Decoy's explosion already does a decent chunk of damage, and the only limit to the number of targets is how many enemies you can get in its range. Astrosphere's range is also quite large, so these two abilities have great synergy. Why stop there though when you can get another friend for even more damage? The decoy's explosion damage scales with courage, and while the scaling is pretty small and linear, more is still more. We did a bit of testing to figure out that just like Fellus, the decoy's explosion damage depends on how much courage you have when you cast the decoy. A howl after you deploy it won't affect the damage, even if the howl is active when the decoy explodes. So with a howl, an astrosphere, and an exploding decoy, we created an AoE explosion of about 1,000 damage. Not too bad. I was hoping I might be able to find a similar synergy with Oela and Siren, but it turned out to be not quite as impressive. Oela's Bestone deals damage to enemies when you break its petrification by attacking them, and Siren's Pictrix powder deals damage to enemies when they are affected by its CC. Unfortunately, neither of these deal very much damage, so while you can combine them to create some synergy, it doesn't scale well for higher level enemies. Both of these damage sources do have some courage scaling, so we confirmed that Howl can be helpful here too, but there are some logistical limitations for both use and for testing. Bestone can only affect a maximum of 4 enemies, so even if we can get more damage out of its break, it's not going to be as powerful as other nukes. Testing Bestone was also a bit challenging because of several host versus client bugs. Bestone's freeze almost always only works if the person casting it is the group host, and clients sometimes won't be able to see its visual effects. Now, while Pictrix powder was pretty mediocre combined with Bestone, Ode Tempest Sizemore was a lot more fun. This is another one that could likely benefit from Howl's courage buff, but it is also limited by both the number of enemies you can freeze with Bestone and by the number of enemies you can hit with Sizemore. The real fun part here is lining up your character to knock back a group of frozen enemies and then watching them all burst at the end. There are some issues with this one too, though. The enemies can get caught on terrain that won't stop Sizemore's projectile, causing them to take damage from the initial impact but not its final explosion. When this happens, the initial impact of Sizemore will break the Bestone, but you don't get the impressive combination of all damage sources together. Also, at least once Sizemore just didn't break Bestone at all, and we have no idea why. Ultimately, the best combination I found for Bestone was, again, Astrosphere. If you cast Astrosphere on top of a group of enemies, they take the entry damage from the sphere as soon as it's cast. If you do this on enemies that are petrified, that entry damage will break Bestone, and the breaking damage will be enhanced by the Astrosphere. This would be another great place for a Howl buff, but again we're limited by the number of enemies that can be petrified at once. The most entertaining Pact synergy I found was not from different pacts that enhance each other, but from 3 of the same pact. Siren's pickpocket upgrade is the strongest tool in the game for farming Drax, since it guarantees at least 1 loot drop from each enemy you find. It only procs when enemies are unaware of your presence, but all 3 of Siren's abilities can accomplish this. Now, normally you can only pickpocket each enemy once, which gives you 1 guaranteed loot drop, and then after that there's a chance of another loot drop when you kill that enemy. However, this limit is per player. So if you get 3 Sirens in a group, you can pickpocket each enemy 3 times, and then potentially get a 4th drop when you kill it. The end result is some deeply entertaining aftermath and probably the most efficient Drax farm in Soulframe. You don't even have to be super coordinated to pull this off. We started out sneaking through enemies as 3 synchronized flocks of butterflies, but in the end we found that just spamming Siren abilities and kiting until bags stopped dropping was plenty effective, making this technique the most practical synergy I've found so far. So get out there and farm your Drax before they fix this, because this is probably not intended. Thanks to everyone who helped me test Synergies, and thanks to you for watching my P10 waiting room shenanigans. This vid is a bit shorter than normal because I was holding out until the last possible moment in hopes that I could do an update overview this week. Since it just dropped, I'll also upload a super quick update review tomorrow, and next week we'll get back to our usual schedule. In the meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe for more Soulframe content. And until next time, happy hunting!